They shaved her head on her son's wedding morning. They thought they could humiliate her into silence. But Monique Carter wasn't the kind of woman you bury. She was the kind who rises and burns the whole lie down. If you've ever been underestimated, betrayed, or pushed past your breaking point, stay with this story till the end. It's about power, pain, and the moment a woman decides she's done playing nice. Drop a signa if you've ever had to start over stronger. The note was pinned to her pillow. Congrats, you finally got a haircut that fits your age. Monique Carter stared at the words until they blurred. Her scalp burned, raw, the smell of antiseptic still clinging to her skin. She reached up, smooth. Every strand of her thick silver-streaked curls was gone. No scream, no tears, just breath, shallow and steady. It was 7 a.m. on her son's wedding day. Across the room, the safe stood open from last night. Inside, the envelope that held the signed transfer of $22 million. Her gift to her only son, Rashad, and his fiancée, Simone. Her fingers touched the envelope. It felt different now, sharp, cruel, like paper with teeth. She placed it back in the safe, turned the dial, and listened to the metal click shut. That sound was her new beginning. She dialed her lawyer. Marcus, the transfer's off. Not a single dollar moves. And tonight, we rewrite my will. Monique, what happened? She looked in the mirror. The woman staring back wasn't the polished real estate queen who'd built half of Atlanta's skyline. This woman was stripped, humiliated, but awake. Nothing happened, she said. I finally opened my eyes. Monique called her stylist next. Tina, I need you here. Bring the best silver wig you've got, and no questions. While waiting, she sat by the window watching the first flakes of Georgia snow drift down. The stillness was almost cruel in its beauty. Her mind wandered back to the night she buried her husband at 32, clutching 12-year-old Rashad in her arms, whispering promises she didn't yet know how to keep. Back then, she'd been a waitress, not a mogul. She taught herself real estate one page, one sleepless night at a time. Every condo, every deal, every dollar had her fingerprints and blood in it. And all of it was supposed to give her boy a life untouched by hunger or fear. Now that same boy's fiancé had pinned a note on her pillow and shaved her head while she slept. The doorbell rang. Tina entered with a long black box. When she saw Monique's bare scalp, she froze. Oh my God, baby. Monique raised a hand. No pity. Just help me look like the woman I built myself into. An hour later, the mirror showed her reborn, a silver-haired queen with eyes like sharpened glass. Thank you, Monique whispered, slipping Tina an envelope thick with cash. After Tina left, Monique slipped a tiny voice recorder into her clutch. Instinct told her the day would demand proof. By 10 a.m., she was on her way to Saint. Mark's church, wrapped in a gray coat Rashad had given her years ago, a memory that now stung like a bruise. As the car glided through the cold streets, she looked at passing couples, wondering how many had been betrayed by those they loved. When she stepped out at the church gates, a strange calm settled over her. She wasn't walking into a wedding. She was walking into war. Inside, stained glass light spilled over her face as she took a pew. Workers rushed around, setting candles and flowers. She barely noticed. Her mind was replaying decades of sacrifice, all the nights she'd gone hungry so Rashad wouldn't. Then, down the side hall, a familiar voice made her freeze. Rashad's. Tessa, don't come here now, he hissed. After I get that money from my mom, we can be together. Just a few more hours. Monique's pulse pounded. Tessa? The young woman from his office? Her hand trembled over her purse. Rashad's voice dropped to a whisper. You know how she is, always trying to please me. Once she signs, we'll have it all. Freedom. No strings. The recorder in her clutch blinked red, every word saved. She sank onto the pew again, staring blankly at the altar while her heart cracked in two. Her son wasn't just greedy, he was cheating, plotting to use her life's work as his escape fund. But she didn't cry. Not anymore. Her tears had turned to strategy. She pressed her palm to her chest, feeling something new: power. And with that, Monique Carter began to plan the downfall of everyone who thought she'd stay quiet. She stood, smoothing her navy silk dress, armor now, and made her way toward the bridal prep room. Music, laughter. The scent of perfume thick in the air. Through the crack of the door, Simone's voice rang out, sharp, confident, full of venom. By tonight, I'll have half of it, 22 million. After that, I'm done. Divorce papers are ready. I'll start over rich and free. Laughter erupted. Monique's throat went dry. And the old lady? One bridesmaid giggled. Simone snorted. Please. I'll have Rashad put her in a fancy nursing home. She can boss around nurses all day while we live our lives. The room burst into shrill laughter. Monique's grip tightened around her purse until her knuckles turned white. The recorder kept blinking. She wanted to storm in, to scream, to drag Simone by that designer gown, but she didn't. Power wasn't loud. It was precise. She slipped back into the hall, face calm, steps steady. When she returned to her seat, no one noticed the steel that had replaced her Heartbreak. The organ began to swell. Guests filled the pews. Monique smiled, soft, regal, hiding the fire roaring underneath. At the back, Simone appeared on her father's arm, glowing like an angel. Cameras flashed. People sighed, but Monique knew the truth. She watched her son at the altar, handsome, proud, lying through his teeth. When the priest asked, "Does anyone object?" her nails dug into her palms. Not yet, she told herself. Every lie needs an audience. And Monique Carter was about to give them the show of their lives. The church was filled with gold light and the sweet scent of roses. Guests whispered softly, cameras flashing as the couple exchanged shy smiles. Everyone saw a picture of perfection, a mother beaming in the front pew, a handsome groom, a radiant bride. But behind Monique Carter's calm smile was a storm waiting for its cue. The priest began, "Marriage is built on trust, on love." Monique almost laughed. Trust. That word felt like poison on her tongue. She glanced around. Simone's bridesmaids dabbed tears. Michael's fraternity brothers grinned. No one could see the truth, that the groom had a mistress and the bride had divorce papers already waiting in her clutch. When it was time for vows, Rashad's voice carried proudly through the church. "I promise to love you, protect you, and stay faithful to you all my life." Faithful. The word cracked inside Monique's skull like thunder. She pictured the phone call she'd recorded less than 2 hours ago. "After I get that money from my mom, we'll be free." Then Simone spoke, eyes shimmering with rehearsed affection. "I promise to stand by you, to share every joy, every struggle, every dream." Monique felt her stomach twist. That same mouth had laughed about sending her to a nursing home. The priest smiled. "By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife." The bells rang, music soared, and applause filled the room. Monique clapped too, slow, deliberate, each clap marking another second closer to her move. As the guests poured out, she stayed behind for a moment. The light hit her silver wig just right. She almost looked angelic. But inside, she was calculating. Every second of humiliation they had ever given her would be paid back with interest and proof. When the crowd reached the reception hall, the mood was pure celebration. Gold linen tables, champagne towers, a live jazz band. The chandelier lights turned every smile into a sparkle. Simone floated through the crowd, laughing, glowing, playing the perfect bride. Rashad stayed close, charming the guests, his hand never leaving hers, an image of devotion. Monique watched from her table near the front. Her champagne sat untouched. She was waiting for silence. Waiting for her stage. The MC finally tapped the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, please raise your glasses for a few words from the groom's mother, the incredible Ms. Monique Carter." Applause erupted. Rashad smiled stiffly. Simone's lips twitched, but she hid it behind her glass. Monique rose slowly, every move deliberate, graceful. The kind of composure that only comes from surviving years of storms. She held her glass up. Thank you, everyone. Today isn't just a wedding for me. It's a day that marks 30 years of sacrifice and love. The room quieted, her calm voice cutting through the buzz. She looked at Rashad. When my husband died, my boy was 12. I promised I'd make sure he never knew hunger, never knew fear. I worked 3 jobs at first, then built a business from nothing. I built towers, but more than that, I built him. A few guests nodded, smiling warmly. But life has a funny way of teaching lessons. Sometimes the people you build end up using those towers to look down on you. Her tone sharpened. The air shifted. The background music faded to near silence. Simone's smile faltered. Rashad straightened, trying to keep his expression steady. Monique continued, her gaze sweeping the crowd. I came here today planning to give a wedding gift, one worth $22 million. Everything I've earned through decades of hard work. Gasps rippled, cameras lifted, guests murmuring. But this morning, something happened that made me realize money doesn't always go to those who deserve it. Rashad's hand moved under the table. Mom, Monique raised a palm. No, son, you'll want to hear this. She reached into her purse and placed a small voice recorder on the table. The red light blinked once. Let's start with this. She pressed play. Rashad's voice filled the elegant hall, echoing through the speakers like a confession. Tessa, don't come to the church. After I get that money from my mom, we'll be free. You know how she is. She'll sign anything I ask. Once it's done, we'll disappear. The room went dead. Forks froze midair. Someone gasped, loud enough to echo. Rashad's face drained of color. Mom, wait. Monique's voice sliced through him like glass. That's your voice, baby. Not mine. Simone's hands trembled under the tablecloth. Her perfect smile cracked. And that's not all, Monique said softly, pressing the button again. Simone's laughter spilled through the speakers next, clear, bright, cruel. Once the money's mine, I'm divorcing him. Half will be enough to start over. And the old woman? Please. I'll have Rashad put her in a nice retirement home, somewhere far. The hall exploded. Gasps. Whispers. Someone dropped their glass. Rashad turned on Simone. You said that? She snapped back, trembling. I was joking. That was private talk. Monique leaned forward, her calm deadlier than shouting. Private talk doesn't come with dollar amounts and divorce lawyers, baby girl. Simone's father stood, his face tight with shame. Simone, what have you done? Guests began pulling out their phones. Some recorded, some whispered to each other. Monique stayed steady. I wanted the world to see this, not because I like drama, but because the truth deserves a witness. You tried to humiliate me, but I don't scare easy. Rashad stood, palms up. Mom, please, don't do this in front of everyone. We can fix it. I made a mistake. She faced him squarely. You didn't make a mistake. You made a plan. You plotted to steal your mother's legacy for a woman who didn't even want you. Simone slammed her napkin down. You think you're so righteous? You can't control him forever. Monique's voice turned ice. I'm not controlling anyone anymore, sweetheart. I'm cutting the strings. She lifted her glass and said clearly, the 22 million stays with me. Neither of you will see a penny. My gift to you today is the truth and freedom from your own greed. Gasps swelled into a wave. Rashad slumped back into his chair, pale and shaking. Simone's face contorted with panic. This is insane, Simone shouted. You can't just... Monique cut her off with a calm smile. Oh, I can. And I did. She turned toward the crowd. To every woman who's ever given too much, let this be your reminder. Love doesn't mean letting people bleed you dry. Sometimes love means walking away. Silence hung for a beat, then someone in the back began clapping. Then another. Then the room erupted. Applause, cheers, gasps of disbelief. Monique didn't stay to bask in it. She turned, walked toward the doors, and left the hall as chaos erupted behind her. Cameras flashed, guests shouted, Simone cried, Rashad begged, but Monique's heels clicked down the marble floor with measured grace. Each step was a goodbye to decades of guilt. In the lobby, Rashad caught up, grabbing her arm. "Mom, please, you don't understand. She manipulated me, I swear." Monique turned, eyes steady, voice low. "Don't lie, Rashad. Not again. I wasn't. I didn't mean—" She pulled her arm free. "You meant every word. You just didn't think I'd ever stop forgiving you." He blinked hard, tears spilling. "I messed up. Please, don't cut me off. You're all I have." Monique's throat tightened. For a moment she saw her little boy again, crying in her arms at his father's funeral, promising he'd take care of her someday. But that promise had died the same morning her hair was shaved off. "Rashad," she said quietly, "you had me your whole life. I was your everything, but you turned me into your ATM. I'm done being your safety net." He dropped to his knees in the grand marble lobby, voice breaking. "I'm sorry, Mama." "Please, I'll change." Her heart twisted, but not enough to bend. "You'll have to learn to stand without me," she said, her tone like calm thunder. Then she walked away. Simone stormed out moments later, mascara streaked, dress dragging, shouting curses that echoed off the high walls. Her parents followed, their faces stone. Monique didn't look back. Outside, the night air bit cold against her skin. The wind tugged at her silver wig, but she didn't fix it. Let the world see. Let them whisper. Her driver opened the car door, but she paused, glancing back through the glass walls. Inside, Rashad stood small and broken amid toppled champagne flutes and stunned guests. For years she'd feared losing him, but watching him crumble under the truth, she realized she'd already lost him long ago. The car door closed. The city lights blurred as they drove away. At home, Monique walked into her quiet penthouse, kicked off her heels, and exhaled for the first time all day. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was clean. She poured herself a glass of red wine, sat at her grand dining table, and stared out the window at the skyline she'd built. Every building, every window glowing in the night. That was her, not Rashad. Not Simone, her. For the first time in years, she smiled for herself. Her phone rang non-stop. Unknown numbers, family, news outlets. She silenced them all. In the stillness, she picked up her planner and crossed out, "Rashad, trust transfer." Then she wrote 3 new words under it, "Rebuild from me." The next morning, sunlight spilled through sheer curtains. Monique brewed coffee, the smell wrapping around her like a promise. When her lawyer, Marcus, arrived, she greeted him with steady eyes. "I want to rewrite my will," she said. He nodded slowly. "Understood. Rashad's removal? All of it," she said. "Every trust, every share. The money goes to a foundation, one that helps single mothers start businesses. Women who work for their future like I did." Marcus's brow lifted, impressed. "You sure about this?" Monique smiled. "Never been more sure in my life." By noon, her signature sealed the papers. It felt like cutting the final thread. When she returned home, she walked past framed family photos on the wall. Rashad at 8, at 16, at his graduation. Her eyes lingered on one where his arm was around her, both laughing. She didn't take it down, but she didn't cry either. That chapter was closed. Later, standing by her window with the skyline glowing below, she whispered to her reflection, "They thought they broke me. But they just set me free." The morning after the wedding felt unreal, quiet, almost holy. No phones buzzing, no champagne laughter, no makeup-smiled lies. Just sunlight spilling through cream curtains and the faint sound of the city waking below. Monique Carter stood at her kitchen counter, hair bare under a silk wrap, coffee steaming in her favorite white mug. For the first time in years, her hands didn't shake. She wasn't waiting for anyone to call. She wasn't rushing to fix anyone's life. The only name left on her list was her own. She sat at the table, opened a leather notebook, and looked at the neat rows of financial plans she'd written over decades. Savings accounts, real estate shares, investments all tied to Rashad's future. One by one, she drew thick red lines through them. At the bottom of the page she wrote, Freedom Fund. That fund wasn't for family anymore. It was for women like her, women who had poured everything into love and gotten emptiness back. When she called her attorney again that morning, his deep voice held quiet admiration. Monique, the papers from yesterday are done. Rashad's name is officially removed. You sure you're ready for this chapter? I've been ready since the moment I woke up bald, she said with a wry laugh. Send me the forms for the foundation. I'm done building towers for ungrateful men. Now I'm building doors for women who need them. Marcus chuckled softly. You always were the fiercest woman in Atlanta. Not fierce, she corrected. Free. When the call ended, she felt something lift off her chest, the heavy armor she'd worn for years just to be taken seriously, respected, loved. She didn't need it anymore. By noon, she'd cleaned her office, papers neatly stacked. The framed picture of Rashad and his father she wrapped in soft cloth and placed gently in a drawer, not out of bitterness, but closure. Then she stepped onto her balcony. The skyline shimmered in the midday heat, the same skyline she'd built deal by deal. Her empire had once been for them. Now, it was hers alone. For the first time in decades, Monique allowed herself to do nothing. No meetings, no clients. No phone calls, just silence, and herself. That evening, she wandered downtown, her silver wrap catching the streetlights. She stopped outside a small art studio, Paint Your Piece, classes for all ages. Inside, a few older women sat around a table laughing, brushes in hand, canvas glowing with color. Something inside Monique stirred. When she was young, before bills and blueprints, she used to draw on napkins, sketching houses she dreamed of owning. She hadn't held a paintbrush in 30 years. On impulse, she walked in. A woman with honey-colored locks looked up and smiled. Hey there, sweetheart. First time? Monique nodded. It's been a long time. Well, baby, the paint don't judge, the woman laughed, handing her an apron. We startin' with oceans tonight. You can sit right here by me. Monique hesitated, then smiled. All right. Show me where to begin. That first stroke felt shaky, unfamiliar, but then something broke loose. The blue spread, the brush glided, and the smell of acrylic filled her lungs like medicine. When she finished, the sea on her canvas shimmered, messy, imperfect, alive. Tears blurred her eyes. I forgot how this feels, she whispered. The teacher, her name was Lena, placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Baby, you didn't forget. You just paused your life. Now you hit play again. Monique smiled through her tears. The next week, she came back. Then again, soon painting became her ritual, mornings with coffee, evenings with color. She met women like her, divorced, widowed, betrayed, but breathing again. They shared stories between brushstrokes. Some cried, some laughed until their sides hurt. Monique listened, adding her own story in pieces. The shaved head, the wedding, the truth she'd unleashed like fire. Every woman in that room understood. That's real power, Lena said one night, eyes glinting. You burned your pain into light. Monique laughed. Guess I finally stopped dimming my own bulb. One evening, a tall man with salt and pepper curls joined their class. He introduced himself softly. Name's Elijah. Used to be an architect before retirement. Now I'm trying to paint buildings that won't collapse on me. Monique smiled. You came to the right place. At first, they just traded tips, which brushes blended better, which blues felt most alive. But over weeks, their conversations deepened. He told her about losing his wife to cancer 5 years earlier, how silence had haunted him ever since. She told him about the betrayal that ripped her apart but forced her to rebuild. "You ever think it's too late to start again?" he asked one night, eyes gentle. She smiled faintly. "I used to. Now I think the late bloom is the strongest kind." They laughed together, the sound easy, like it belonged. Elijah began walking her to her car after class. Sometimes they'd sit in his old pickup outside the pier, sipping coffee and watching the waves crash in rhythm. It wasn't romance at first, just quiet understanding. Two survivors breathing in sync. But sometimes, when he talked, she'd catch herself smiling for no reason. And when she laughed, he looked at her like she was sunlight. Months passed. Her hair grew back, short, soft curls of silver and black. She stopped wearing wigs altogether. She hung her paintings along her living room wall, seascapes, sunsets, women standing tall against storms. Her home didn't look like an empire anymore. It looked like freedom. Then one afternoon, as the tide rolled gold under the setting sun, Elijah asked softly, "You ever think about showing these?" "Showing what?" "Your paintings." "These are stories. People need to see them." She shook her head. "They're just for me." He smiled. "Then show them for you." Not for applause, for closure. So she did. At the next community art fair, Monique brought 6 canvases. She stood quietly by her booth, unsure what to expect. People stopped. They stared. Some asked questions. One woman touched her arm, tears in her eyes. "That one? The woman with the shaved head standing by the ocean? That's me." Monique smiled softly. "It's me too." By the end of the day, she'd sold 2 paintings. But it wasn't the money that mattered. It was watching strangers connect with her truth, seeing her pain turn into power. Elijah brought flowers that night, wild sunflowers tied with string. "For the woman who paints storms into peace," he said. She blushed, a sound of disbelief escaping her. "You're too smooth. I'm just honest," he replied with a smile. In the months that followed, they became constants in each other's lives. Dinners, walks by the sea, shared silence. He never tried to fix her. She never tried to replace anyone. They just existed side by side, both healing in real time. But one afternoon, a familiar black car pulled into her driveway. Rashad. He sat behind the wheel, face drawn, shoulders heavy. She could see the weight of consequence in his posture. Her heart jumped, but she didn't hide. She opened the gate herself. He stepped out slowly. "Mama." Her throat tightened. "You look tired." "I am." He swallowed hard. "I lost everything. Simone's gone. The business failed. I've been living in a friend's spare room. I just needed to see you." Monique studied him for a long moment. "You here for help or healing?" He blinked. I need forgiveness." She nodded toward the porch. "Then come sit." He sat on the edge of her wicker chair like a boy again, head bowed. The silence stretched. "I was wrong," he said finally, voice breaking. "I don't even know who I became." "You didn't deserve that. None of it." She looked out toward the sea. "You were raised in love, Rashad, but love can't teach a man integrity. Only truth can." Tears rolled down his face. "I don't deserve your forgiveness." "No," she said softly. "But I'll give it anyway. Not for you, for me. I can't carry that anger forever." He lifted his eyes, confused. "So, we're okay?" "We're not okay," she said gently. "We're just honest. And that's a start." He nodded, crying harder now. "I want to change, Mama. I want to be better." "Then be," she said, standing. "Go build a life that doesn't depend on me saving you." He stood too, uncertain, lost. "Will you ever let me come back?" She touched his arm, light, maternal. "When you come as a man who stands on his own, my door will be open." He nodded slowly, tears soaking his collar. "I love you, Mama, I know," she whispered. "I just hope one day you love yourself too." He left quietly. The car rolled down the street until it disappeared into the dusk. Monique exhaled, her chest aching, not from anger, but release. She had cut the final thread without hate. That night, Elijah stopped by with dinner. He found her sitting on the porch, eyes soft. "You all right?" he asked. She smiled faintly. "Yeah, I think I finally closed that chapter." He handed her a small canvas bag. Inside was a new set of brushes. "For new beginnings," he said. She looked at him, warmth blooming in her chest. "You always know what to bring." "Because I've been where you are," he said. "When my wife passed, I thought my story was over. Turns out it was just the middle." Monique nodded. "Yeah, I think I just reached my middle too." Weeks later, her foundation officially launched, the Carter Rise Initiative. Its mission: grants for single mothers starting small businesses, mentorship, and financial training. At the opening ceremony, she stood behind a simple wooden podium, looking out at a room full of women, some nervous, some excited, all hopeful. "When I started my career," she said, "I thought success meant building towers. But real success is building people, especially women who've been told they're too old, too broken, too late." The audience clapped, some wiping tears. "I stand here with scars on my scalp, wrinkles on my hands, and peace in my heart. And I want to tell you, your age, your past, your pain, none of it disqualifies you. It prepares you." She stepped down to thunderous applause. Afterward, Lena hugged her tight. "Look at you, Ms. Monique. Turning your pain into a whole movement." Monique smiled. "Guess I learned storms can water something new." That evening, she returned home, kicked off her heels, poured a glass of red wine, and stood by her window. The city glowed below, alive with color. Her reflection looked back, silver curls soft around her face, eyes bright. Elijah joined her by the window, his hand brushing hers. "You ever think," he murmured, "if they hadn't done what they did, you'd still be living small?" Monique smiled. "Then I guess I should thank them for breaking me. They made room for who I was meant to be." Outside, lightning flickered over the horizon, a quiet storm rolling in. She watched it calmly. Once, storms had terrified her. Now, she saw their beauty, because she had become one. The next morning, she woke early, painted a white flower opening under moonlight, her favorite yet. She titled it, "Late Bloom." It sold within a week. But she kept the print hanging in her studio as a reminder. Every petal was her story: pain, truth, rebirth. Now, when she spoke at events, women often approached her afterward, eyes wide, voices trembling. "You made me brave," they'd say. Monique always smiled. "No, baby. The bravery was already there. I just reminded you." Her life no longer revolved around proving worth or buying love. Now she built peace, one brushstroke, one woman, one honest day at a time. And when the sun dipped low over the ocean each evening, she sat on her porch beside Elijah, 2 cups of coffee steaming between them. He'd say softly, "You ever think about what's next?" And she'd smile, eyes reflecting the orange glow. This is next. Because for Monique Carter, once humiliated, now reborn, peace wasn't a pause before something new. It was the something new. She had turned betrayal into blueprint, silence into story, and pain into purpose. Her late bloom had finally opened, wild and unashamed.